So let's bring in the guests. Hi.
Greetings. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, see you. Perfect. Hi.
Perfect.
This is
Hi.
Pamela
Two
Denise.
thumbs up.
Pamela
Hi,
Denise
Judge Joe
Long.
Brown. Hi,
Hello,
ma'am.
ma'am.
How are
How are
you?
you?
I'm happy to be here. I love the conversation that you two were having, and I love your question about why can't Democrats be more serious and why can't Democratic voters expect more seriousness from the people who are supposed to represent them. Love it, love it, love it.
I
Thanks,
mean, it's
Dana,
a
for
great
having me.
effort bouncing
Yeah,
around and all of this, that, and the other. It's what they do, but it doesn't get anybody in place. It doesn't solve the crime problem. It doesn't boost the economy. It
right.
doesn't improve the educational system. It certainly doesn't improve the personal and collective character of the nation.
That part.
Well, I really appreciate you being here. And Miss Pamela Denise Long, you are running for Senate of U.S. Senate of the state of Illinois. So please
Yes.
introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah,
Yes.
so thank you both for having me on. I am so honored to have the conversation with you. So yes, my name is Pamela Denise Long. I am a former Newsweek contributor, had a column there for about 4 years or thereabouts, writing about immigration, the impacts of it on all Americans, also writing about what it takes for Black Americans to divorce the Democratic Party. I wasn't advocating for them to jump into a marriage with any other party, but Black Americans, like all other constituents, need to be at every seat of power. Why aren't we part of the Green Party, the Independent Party, the Libertarian Party, and the Republican Party? And let's see, Newsweek contributor, doing a lot of Twitter spaces on X, talking about lineage-based investment, what that looks like, having to frame up reparations, what that could look like in an Americans First policy agenda. I'm running for U.S. Senate here in the state of Illinois because I've had enough of the nonsense, kind of like what Judge Joe Brown was talking about. I'm looking for serious policies. I'm looking for people to make a commitment and deliver on the promises of when we talk about Americans First. I mean, all Americans First. I've been calling the Republican Party back to its 1854 roots, especially when I conducted a poll back in 2022 of some 250 thereabouts Black Americans who said they would absolutely vote for the Republican Party if the party were to remember what they were started for. I mean, our party was called the Negro Party because Democrats of that time didn't want to represent the interests of Black Americans. So I'm running to make policy real. To make Americans First policy make sense. We can be focused on our own citizens and be humane at the same time, but we have to get it done, and we don't have many years to make it happen.
Well said. And I put the link to her website in the chat. I'm gonna put it in the description. I want people to go support, donate. It's very important.
Yes, please.
Yes, a couple of policy priorities: economic growth, parental rights, sovereignty and border security, safety and criminal justice, protect and nurture life, solutions, not division. So the state of Illinois has been in the news for a while now, and is mainly because of the migrant crisis,
Yes.
particularly Chicago. Hot mess. So what is the state right now in the state of Illinois when it comes to the migrant crisis, all the way down to Chicago? What are they doing? Are they working with ICE to deport? Are the illegals still using benefits and resources of taxpayer dollars?
No, so such a great question. So the issue of funding illegal aliens over American citizens has been a big problem in the Black community in Chicago. Yes, the state of Illinois is a sanctuary state, and the city of Chicago has chosen, didn't have to be, but has chosen to be a sanctuary city. What that means is that the Democratic governor and the Democratic mayor have decided that they will use public funds. It as much as they're able to support illegal immigrants who've come into the nation. Brandon Johnson, who's the mayor of Chicago, was called out by many Black Americans at City Hall about how Black Americans were denied access to their own facilities. So we're talking about high schools, we're talking about community centers, and they use those places to house illegal immigrants. And so there's a tone deafness that is happening at the state and local level in Chicago and in the state of Illinois. I think our governor basically said that when it came to people protesting illegal immigration, he said he had never called for mass demonstrations until ICE was coming to Chicago. So he didn't call for it when that sister was shot in the eye he hasn't called for it when Black Americans have been shooting each other, Black folks have been shooting each other up on the weekends, but he called for mass demonstrations when it came to people exercising our basically control of our borders in Chicago. And I think that people are hungry for new leadership. The question is, will people get up and go vote for it?
And you're running against a Democrat. Is this a already seated senator?
So here's the fun part about that, Dana. There are 22 people running for this seat. I'm running for the seat vacated by Dick Durbin via his retirement. Dick Durbin has been in office for, I think, 15 terms overall. There are about 13 Democrats who are running, so they'll duke it out during the primary, and whoever that person is along with the general. I'm running against 6 to 8 Republicans. A couple of those make it on the ballot. I am the only one who has been advocating for Americans First policy for years. I'm also the only person who has a plan to fold Democrats, disaffected Democrats, and independents into my policy programs. I'm running on an all Americans First agenda. And what that means is I am able to and have proposed policies that do address the needs of all Americans, whether they be in the rural, suburban, or urban environments and across races. And I'm also the only candidate who, including Democrats, who's fighting for lineage-based investment. So as you know, everybody can be a minority nowadays, and they shoehorn themselves into Negro civil rights. People fly over here from a country that they ain't never been over here, and suddenly they're competing with us for our set-asides and whatnot. And I want to put an end to that. And ultimately, I want to close the issue of what Black Americans have been advocating for in terms of lost wealth and whatnot, by making sure we redirect half of minority to the people it was intended for. And that's legacy Black Americans, whether we be FBA, ADOS, Freedmen, whatever your preferred moniker is. I'm talking about those of us who are descendants of the founding Black population. And that could end up saving our nation $50 trillion in about 40 years if we redirect half of that money in an investment way, in a seed capital way, rather than just small checks that folks would get.
Before I swing into the
If I might offer you a talking point when you're talking about sanctuary cities, the federal law that pertains to the subject is Title 8, Section 1324. Title 8, Section 1324. Write it down. It's been on the books for quite some time. It's a lengthy code section, United States Codes Annotated, USCA. It's abbreviated. Title 8, Section 1324. It makes setting up a sanctuary city a criminal act. There is no excuse or no defense that someone holds an official position. It's criminal. I defended people 40, 45 years ago charged with the offense. It was in a different context, but it's the same set of laws. So when somebody is advocating sanctuary cities where they give aid, comfort, advice, transportation, food, clothing, shelter, prevent or interfere with their apprehension, detention, and deportation, that is a criminal act. When they agree to do it, it becomes a conspiracy, which is a very serious felony under American criminal law. So you have a talking point, and when you get to the U.S. Senate
Mm-hmm.
chambers, you can advocate that someone do something about enforcing that law.
Yeah,
And
I love
some
that.
people who are governors and mayors, and if they advocate outside of the congressional environment, if they seek to implement it, it doesn't make any difference what their official position is. It's criminal.
No,
So
I love
and
that.
it, by the way, it carries about 5 years minimum in a federal penitentiary. Well, some minor aspects have a 5 year cap.
Mm,
That's 60 months. 56 would be served in a federal penitentiary. So that's a
gotcha.
talking point. So you're not just doing mega. If you have one of those
Yeah,
sensitive audiences, it's a United States Codes annotated
for sure.
Title 8, Section 1324. And you
Got it. I
just
love
look it
it.
up. You can read
I
some of
will.
it. It's very interesting. And by the
Thank
way,
you.
I did post on X, but they suspended me. They
Oh,
said I
what?
was a bot.
So are you getting your account back?
I finally, after a month
Okay.
and a half, got the appellate process, which the one they were talking about, you start here and then you go around the circle and you wind up right back there and you keep going around and get
Mm,
nowhere. Finally, I got a form that they posted under my account on X. I can still read it, but I can't post anything or like anything. And I think that was the objective. I think
To
Mr.
silence.
Musk
the silence.
got somebody
Yeah.
Yeah.
in place to run stuff, and she's letting some of the algorithms run again.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, the
I want
silencing is really something I've experienced that as well. And I think that what's really important is us to be able to connect offline. What really matters is for us to be able to change people's hearts and minds, to be focused on education, which I know you've been focused on, Judge, which is one of the things I admire about you, and Dana, you as well with YouTube. So that's why it's important to have multiple platforms. And I am on Twitter. On Facebook. You can find me on TikTok. You can find me on YouTube. If you Google, you'll find my interviews. You'll find my column from Newsweek and the like. And then, Dana, I see you have my campaign website up there as well. So we have to have multiple
May,
ways to connect.
may I make a suggestion to you, and you might want to
Yes, ma'am.
incorporate it into your campaigning? They need to revert to the older requirements of news reporting where there was what they call fairness in reporting. If you
Mm.
badmouth one somebody, then that person got a freebie opportunity to reply.
Oh, now see, that's an interesting approach. I know they were trying to do that fairness doctrine,
They
trying to,
had it up until
yeah,
1982. It was darn near universal, but it got wiped out. So now the news outlets have become very partisan and very biased and very far away from being objective. And in fact, there are situations where it's gotten so bad that they won't even accept the advertising dollars from some candidates because they don't like what you're about. So they
yeah.
selectively destroy the intent of the First Amendment being something to keep the American public informed and advised and on top of the arguments and
Yeah. I will
fine
say
points of a position.
one of the, so let's talk a little bit about the policy priorities that I'd like to implement. One of which is I think it is absolutely wrong to use propaganda against the American public. And I would like to see that changed in public policy. I know that that is one of the laws or rules or regulations that came out. I would also like to make sure that when it comes to immigration, what we were talking about before, that there is accountability for the folks who have implemented sanctuary cities and sanctuary states, because there are several. I think I've identified six, and in addition to the ones the judge mentioned here, to hold people mean that elected officials will go to jail unless they are found guilty of something significant. But what it does mean is we can't allow people to decide that they're going to agree amongst themselves to subvert federal authority over immigration, because the Supreme Court has already ruled that the federal government has jurisdiction over immigration policies. Another thing that I would like to do that I'm so pleased to see the president proposing is an elimination of the income tax. I think we need to revisit how we fund government services. I'm all for a social safety net. If something happens to me or to you and you need support during that short period of time where you're unable to be independent on your own, we definitely want the social safety net, but I would definitely support an elimination of the income tax. And there are other things I'd like to do related to education. I mean, my first career is in occupational therapy. I have a master's in educational psychology. Are you an OT as well?
No, but I am a licensed massage therapist, and I was going to go to OT, but yeah, I ain't feel like going to get my master's. But yeah, I work with a lot of OT, so I think they're wonderful. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. So, and my master's is in educational psychology. I wanted to work in organizational learning and change. I had the mastery of the individual level intervention being an OT. I wanted to work at the systems level. So I taught at Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville, which is in the St. Louis area, downstate where I am. And then my doctorate is in organizational development. So I nerd out when it comes to like designing interventions, designing systems, looking at implementation process and all that kind of stuff. So when Elon Musk and all of his Doge team were thinking about efficiency and effectiveness, that just made my heart happy. And I think there's more that we can do from a government level to cut spending if we look at where our money is actually going at programs that are effective or ineffective, and sort of manage government in a way that actually treats it as if we're dealing with someone else's money and show some respect in doing so. So fiscal responsibility.
One thing I'd like to add to your mix, if you choose to use it, I think when you're talking about the immigration factor, these open borders allow Hamas, ISIS, and Al Qaeda to walk across the border with things that would obviate their need to hijack airliners and repeat 911, but do what they do on a much larger scale. They don't have B-52s, B-1s, or B-2 bombers to go assault the United States in retaliation, but they can walk, or they were able to walk across the border with military-grade explosives and unchecked backpacks for 4 years.
Yeah, I believe one of the caucuses actually identified the number of folks who've been arrested at the southern border, particularly that terror watch, that was on the terror watch list. So definitely we need that we have operational control of our border, which is from the 2006 Secure Fence Act. So I agree with you on the homeland security element of that for sure.
And the other thing too, this resistance to law and order, what kind of somebody would like death and theft in the streets of their constituent cities just to thwart Donald Trump? You know?
Well, you know, Donald Trump triggers people in a way that nothing else can of late. So
well, I want to ask you about your agenda, because you have economic growth, parental rights, immigration and secure the borders. We were just talking about that. Safety and criminal justice, strong men and boys, and health and well-being. So strong men and boys, why do you put that there?
So I think there are ways in which we heavily invested in women. I'm a woman, I raised a woman, and I love it, right? I wouldn't take any of that back. But I think there are ways that we've left men behind. We invested a lot in women's education. We're at a point now where Black women are demographically the more likely to start a business, but also receive or pursue higher education than their Black male counterparts, but also men in general. There are ways in which most white men and most Black men have a high school diploma or less. That's leaving them out of STEM fields. And that harkens back to the immigration element, where we've invested in the technological development of demographics and not our own men. And so I think there are ways that the liberal sort of approach to thinking about gender has also made masculinity toxic. They've framed it as being toxic. And I think we need more strong masculine men who have a mission and a purpose and a vision. And while, I'm not skilled at being a man because I'm not one, I definitely am collaborating with men in the state of Illinois of all ages and all demographics about what does it mean and what does it look like to invest in men and boys in a way that strengthens them in order to strengthen communities, in order to strengthen families. And so it's a conversation that they're animated about because they feel a need for it. And I'd love to hear the judges' thoughts on that as well.
Well, basically, it's this. For the last 50 some years, they've had a take your daughter to work week, but they've never had one take your son to work week. And also, these stats are from 2011, where the Defense Department did some white papers on it, and I think you would be able to access them. It seems that on average, for the first 11 years of this century, and the stats have remained pretty constant since then, only 28% of each year's high school graduates are male. Only 32% of the college undergraduates are male, and only 36% of the grad students in the United States are male. And this is the bad one. Only 44% of the American workforce is male. So something's gone badly wrong with the patterns that are out there. And the other thing I'd say is this. I have yet to experience the report of a criminal case where girls did a drive-by.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and so that evinces yet another need to invest in men and have them have a stronger, more pro-social, so to speak, purpose for themselves. And I don't want to give the impression that everyone has to go to college, right? There's something beautiful and very necessary, and somebody, being your husband, being able to do your plumbing, right, or being able to weld and all of that. The point is, how do you invest in men that they actually feel that they are? There's nothing wrong with a woman who has a master's degree marrying a man who is a welder or have a welding company or whatever the case may be. So I don't want to give the impression of being elitist that everybody has to have a college diploma, but I want people to have a purpose that is rooted in these pillars of communities, family stability, and children who also grow up to be reasonable adults who don't wear their pajamas to the airport. Can I say that?
Well, if I could say this, I handled a lot of the divorces before I got into being a jurist. And even 35, 40 years ago, it really was stressful to a marriage when the woman's academic achievements far exceeded those of her husband. Those working relationships did not settle in well because somebody is interested in this stuff over here that makes them tick, and somebody's got something over there that makes them tick, and they kind of clash. And there's usually somebody in there that's saying, why don't you just be down to earth and use plain language? Well, that might be nice, except plain language is sometimes not as expressive. But I will say this, Musk and some others have been doing research, and I jumped into it 2 or 3 months ago, and it looks like real AI based on large language models is going to pretty much make some of the trades obsolete inside the next decade and a half. So the problem is if you're not staying on top of it, you might find your job taken over. And in China, they actually have humanoid robotics that they are implementing to do those things, sort of like Asimov and his robot series.
I want to ask you a question that you have on your agenda. It was parental rights.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that? Because I think that's a good
Yeah.
thing, but
That I like about that. That's important. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so a few things. One, there are ways in which schools have gotten things all twisted up. Schools are supposed to be supports to the parent, who is our primary educator. There are ways that parents send their children to school without adequate verbal expression to communicate their preferences and non-preferences. There are ways that some parents send their children to school without adequate vocabulary and literacy. Like I remember, we grew up poor, right? But I remember me being drilled by my grandmother, who did not graduate high school, on my ABCs and my times tables and all of that kind of stuff. So there's that. We need to get it back to where parents are the child's primary educator and stop making it so that teachers are supposed to do magic with children who aren't even doing their homework, right? So there's that bit. There's also this deal that's been happening where schools are transing children without parent consent. But if you are a parent consenting to your child being trans, I need to better understand like what is going on with that, because the idea that 3 of your children are transgender is like, what's the math on the likelihood that something's actually not wrong with you as a parent versus your children naturally being confused so much about their gender. So there's that element. I don't think that children who are under the age of 18 should be transitioned, certainly not on puberty blockers. There are ways in which the idea of puberty blockers not being permanent, or some of the other things not having a potentially permanent effect, were not true. So there's a lot happening with the whole trans and other movements that's happening at schools that I think parents should be able to make decisions. I don't think you should be able to transport a woman's child, a man's child, a family's child across borders to get an abortion as their educator. I think decisions that parents should be able to make. I'm pro-life. I make no apologies for that. I am keenly, abortion movement started as an outcropping of eugenics. I am keenly aware too that the person leading Planned Parenthood is the grandchild of the woman who founded it based on eugenics. I'm keenly aware that most abortion clinics are in the Black American community. I'm keenly aware that more Black children have been aborted than been born. That is one of the reasons, not the only, but one of the reasons that our population has gone from the second largest population and thus political power base in the nation, because we have killed more children than we have birthed.
Have you ever considered possible legislation on a federal level to have it just absolutely prohibited to do any sex change alterations in minors as child abuse?
Yes, absolutely. I think and I also judge. So, as a healthcare practitioner, we take an oath to do least harm, right? There are ways that the gender movement has not looked at the mental health concerns of the people who feel that they are trapped in their own bodies, some of whom have autism and other pervasive developmental delays that interfere with their ability to be comfortable within themselves in general. The Tavistock Center, which was a huge gender clinic in the UK, after they got shut down, one of the reasons they got shut down is because it was revealed that they were prohibited from talking about the mental health concerns of these youth. They also didn't talk to the youth about if they had been molested or abused, which is also a contributing factor for why survivors don't want to be associated with the body that was sexually molested. So my approach is to address all of those various constituent groups under the trans umbrella. And then, Judge, and Dana, that there are men who simply enjoy seeing themselves as women, autogyneal, and those things, all those different groups are not the same. So why would we treat them as the same? Yes, I am 100% against transing children or anyone really without understanding the mental health and other background demographic or historical information that's contributed to their confusion.
so we have
About 3 years ago, up in Nashville, this guy went berserk and shot up a school and killed 6 people, 3 adults and 3 students. And there's a thing going on right now. A sister who's a chancellor in Nashville is trying to force this conservative reporter to reveal his source, which turns out to be allegedly a cop who let him
Mm,
photocopy
the
the
manifesto.
manifesto of the
Hmm.
shooter. And in it, he allegedly reveals that he was extremely angered that these people at this school tried to encourage him to transition to something else. And he says he was a child. They should have known better, that he did not know better, and should have talked
Mm,
him out of it instead of trying to encourage him. So in his
mm,
rage, he goes back and shoots up the school, and he dies in the process. So that's one of these things that they try to hide. But you're talking about the parental thing.
mhm.
I just don't like the idea of, like, Waltz. We were talking about Waltz earlier. He signed off on some
Minnesota.
stuff in Minnesota
Hmm.
that allows the school basically to take over the parental role when it comes to this kind of deviant sexuality. And one other thing I'd ask you to consider,
Mm.
for whatever it's worth, I've been speaking on this at some length for several years. What we have with LGBTQIA is a coalition. It's not a solid one because there's that
Mm.
LBG
Lesbian,
thing,
gay, and bi.
lesbian,
Yeah.
bi, and
Yeah.
gay, versus that transsexual and all that pedophilia stuff, which they don't like.
Mm.
And I might urge upon you, if you get, when you get elected,
I like that one.
to have somebody take a good look at applying the same rules that have been applied to keep organized religion out of schools, public schools.
Well, that's interesting. Hmm.
The same factors apply when you're talking about LGBTQIA plus, meaning the rainbow cult. It's a theology,
Mm.
and it's spread all through certain states' government buildings, rainbow stuff all up and down the hallways. You can't put a cross, a star, a crescent, six-armed Shiva, or an image of Buddha in there, but you can put the rainbow in, and you can teach the children this 5, 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, from kindergarten through 12th grade, whereas you can't teach religion, you see.
Mm.
So you're getting a cult pushed, which becomes more than just a sexual thing. It becomes a way of life with an approach to logic, reasoning, analytical capacity, duty, honor, courage, bravery, and saying none of these things are important. Just do what you want and forget the rest of the people you'd otherwise have a compact with. And if you want to understand how it's really a religion, think of Buddhism. It's an ancient and honorable religion. It's a theology, but there's no Godhead to it. You can have a God or not have a God and be a devout Buddhist. Whatever God you have is yours. And that's the same thing with the rainbow cult. It is just like Buddhism in a different kind of way, but there is no Godhead to it. But just like Buddhism, it is in fact a theology, a very strong theology, but it's negativism. And unlike every other theology, instead of promoting those things that are pretty universal in human character about duty, honor, obligation, accountability, responsibility, courage, bravery, integrity, dependability, it's saying ours is, we have none of that. Let's get rid of it so the children don't need to work. They feel entitled. They are supposed to be taken care of. There are no consequences. Crime is good, and all of these other things. So,
Hmm. Well, Judge, I
why do we
definitely.
allow this cult to be taught in our schools and plastered all over our government buildings, and nobody does anything to repress it or keep it in check, just like 50 years ago, you had that God is dead thing because no religion in the schools or the government.
I
But
would
now you
definitely
got
like
one.
I would definitely like to get back to some basics in education. We need to teach children how to read. We need to make sure parents are sending children ready to respect authority and make sure that that authority is honorable and worthy of respect. We need to get back to reading, writing, arithmetic, and respect. So how about the 4 R's for me?
I like that.
Right.
That sounds good.
I have some
And no
questions.
theft and death in the streets.
I have
So,
Exactly.
one second, Judge.
and
Wait one
something
second.
else.
Let me wait 1 second. 1 second. Hold that. I have a couple questions that people sent in. I wanted to ask you, and thank you guys. Jackals of Tara Argentum says, question for the senator. Equity firms like BlackRock own 22 to 30% of U.S. residential real estate. The primary investor in these firms are China's intelligence services. What can be done about this huge
National security issue. Absolutely. It is a national security issue. It needs to be addressed as such. I know Florida a bit of a model when it comes to looking at who the properties are and when those are close to secure or vulnerable national security assets. I frankly do not. So this is a hard thing because we're a capitalist society. So we try not to get too much into restrictions of profit and what people can do. I do think, though, that this potentially raises to an infringement on life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness because the prices are raising so much that our next generation can't afford to buy a home. And we have a large number of, 30 somethings even who are living with their parents now. So I would host investigations into the impacts of this and look at what we can do without compromising, without overly interfering in business processes, but definitely looking at foreign agencies owning property and large corporations buying up farmland and housing such that it prices beyond what is reasonable.
I have another question. 1 second, Judge. Another question. Wait, hold on for a second. One
Yes.
second, Judge. 1 second, 1 second. So the other question is, Ms. Long, what do you think about elected officials accepting funds from these NGOs
that aren't based in America? I don't know that we can. Dana, did
or
we lose
lobbying
your
on behalf
audio?
of other countries? Would you support a bill to stop it? You can hear me, right?
I can now. I think we lost your voice for a second.
No, I didn't say anything.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, gotcha. I understand where the question is coming from. And everyone who donates to your campaign is looking for something. And depending on how much, they are expecting you to deliver something. So any foreign agency that is donating to an American official is looking out for the interests of that foreign government and or corporation. I am an Americans First candidate, point blank, period. So people who are donating to me can expect that I'm going to use my funds in order to get elected and to implement Americans First policies. I think that every agency that is advocating on the interest of a foreign government should be registered as an agency advocating on the interest of a foreign government. And that is already in law. And it should be enforced so that every agency advocating on the interest of a foreign government should be registered.
You know something? When you
Yes,
get
sir.
in, take a look at the transcriptions of the 3 Hunter Biden laptops. There are some things that are tagged in. It's not just one, it's 3. I've read the downloads, the transcripts. They're interesting. Another thing, if I might suggest to you, take a look at China's website. It's huge, but they give a big explanation for a lot of what they're doing. And they have an interesting point in there, which is they are attempting to control 20% of the stock in the large companies, 35% sometimes. And what they're attempting to do is stabilize our stock exchanges and our currency because they think that the world being dependent, it's too easy to set the whole world into a mass depression with some of the irresponsible things that our Wall Street bunch do or don't do. And they've taken it upon themselves, they say in their presentation, that they feel compelled to do this to stabilize the stock exchanges and the currencies of Japan and the United States and the Euro Union because there is a lack of an effective set, legislative set, because the American legislators know so little about the subject that they aren't actually able to control it. So the Chinese are saying on their
They're doing us a
website
favor.
that
Got it.
they're doing, not us, they're doing the whole world a favor because they
Yeah.
don't want a worldwide depression to come about. And they are doing essentially, hey, look, we don't want you doing this. Who do you think you are? Well, go check out the following, and you might see that a very large holding of stock in your company or your conglomerate is, guess who's talking to you?
Well, listen, I definitely want you to come back on a platform. The election is next year in November, correct?
Actually, so this is the deal. We're in the primary right now. And St. Patrick's
Okay.
Day, March 17th, 2026, is when people will go to vote for the Democrat or the Republican. I am asking people to pull the Republican primary ballot and vote for me for U.S. Senate. If I don't make it past the primary, I never make it to the general. So one person from each party, from the Democrat and Republican, will move on to the general. So I'm asking folks to pull the Republican primary and vote for me. I'm Americans First. You can check me out. I've been advocating for these policies for years. I am focused on a lineage-based investment for Black Americans. For those who followed me on X, you know that I've been talking about what lineage-based investment looks like, and that is that redirecting half of minorities funding already being spent toward legacy Black Americans in order to address the deprivations that have happened and also to cut federal spending over time. Fewer people dependent upon the government means the government needs to spend fewer dollars in social supports and, you know, people having productive ways of living and all the other things related to that. Folks can find that on my website. When you click on the issues tab in the top menu, you'll see a list of about 8 to 10 things, including housing, health and well-being, and other things that I've laid out solidly there. And I'm happy to talk with anyone about any questions. My email is on the website, my phone number is on the website. And I love the invitation to come back. I really enjoyed the conversation. And Judge, I
Yeah,
appreciate
we
all the
want you
advice
back.
and I took notes. Well, thank you.
Well,
I
also,
appreciate it. Thank you.
let's
By the way, you're very articulate,
Thank you.
much more so than the typical senatorial candidate that I've encountered.
Wow, that
And by
says a
that,
lot.
well, it shows you're a doctor, you know,
Mhm.
so you have a facility with the English language and coherent, organized, rational, reasonable, and logical thinking,
Well, what
I'm
I
going to
want you
need
to
you to
which
do
is
put that
is
in writing
impressive.
as a recommendation, Judge.
what I want you to do is come back next month in January, and even in February. So, you know, because if people don't live in Illinois, right, of
Mhm.
course they can't vote for you, but what can people throughout this nation do to
Yes.
support you?
If you don't live in Illinois, call someone that you know who does and let them know about me. Share my website with them. If you don't live in Illinois, you can volunteer to phone bake for my campaign. which would be to call people to let them know about Z. If you don't live in Illinois, you can donate to my campaign. We will need lots of donations in order to get the message out. I live downstate, so I do a lot of traveling around the state. I put 40,000 miles on my car in the last, 8-9 months of campaigning. So I'm always moving around the state, getting to know voters. If you don't live in in Illinois, but you know people who are in media like Dana and the judge and other folks who I would be able to come and have conversations with them so that people start to recognize my name as candidate for U.S. Senate, that would all be beneficial. If you know any folks who work in government who I should maybe get to know who would be willing to endorse me, folks who are in business, who are Greek letter orgs, who are other folks who would be able to endorse, all of those things would be helpful. So the more people who know my name, the more voters who know my name, and the more people in government, politics, and business who know my name, all the better for us being able to win the primary on St. Patrick's Day and then go on to win the general in November of 2026.
Well, thank you so much.
I would suggest you talk to Gloria Zervine, who runs Pace magazine out of Los Angeles. She gets around the country and people subscribe to it. I think you two would do good to do a hookup, and she, I think, would probably push you, because right now I think you're probably running into resistance in Illinois when it comes to getting your message out. Or am I wrong about that?
I think I am a very different Republican than some of the conservative Republicans are used to. But I think I'm the kind of Republican that the land of Lincoln used to have and the kind of Republican that we need going forward. So yes, there's resistance, but there are also some people who are very energized. So getting the message out is always appreciated. Can we connect in the back channel so that Gloria knows?
Yes, I was gonna.
I'll exchange numbers.
I'd get
All right, so yeah, I'll do that. I'm definitely going to send you his number. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Back on next month. And I want people to go to the website and support. That's longforsenate2026.com. The link is in the chat. The link is in the description. Donate, because that's very important. And volunteer and get the word out. So thank you so much, Miss Pamela Denise Long.
Appreciate it.
I don't want to.
Miss MS.
MS. Okay. So
Denise.
Miss Pamela Denise Long. I appreciate you. Looking forward to have you come on next month again. And then I want you to come on again in February too.
Yes,
and then
all the days.
Election. Yes. So definitely have to get it out there. All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all. Have a good night.
All right.
Hey, I enjoyed it. I think you're going far.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Judge Show. That means a lot to me.
2 thumbs up.
Awesome.
All right. Have a good night.
Bye.